Happy Saturday, everybody. I'm Kaylin.
I'm Marina.
And welcome back to another episode of Southernwood Podcast.
Y'all remember when we did that episode on giants a few weeks ago? Well, and we kind of mentioned Atlantis, but it turns out giants are just a fraction of what Atlantis and all its myths are actually about. So sit back and grab your Poseidon hydrant.
Trident.
Trident. And let's discover Atlantis together. What your base is of where you're at on what you know about Atlantis. You could maybe just hear about it in passing, or maybe you've actually looked into it. Maybe you watched a few science documentaries about it, but I didn't really care too much about the whole Atlantis thing until recently.
Isn't there an old Disney movie?
Yes, and I remember because when I was a child, okay, a little backstory. So I only had my grandpa until I was 7 years old, and he would bring me to the movies once a week, and Atlantis was one of them. And I usually never fell asleep during a movie as a kid, but I fell asleep during Atlantis, and I felt so bad.
It was like a cartoon, huh?
Mm-hmm. With the guy that's...
And something like a ship, and he was like...
Well, yeah, that's Atlantis.
Yeah, I guess that is
a guy in a ship. Poseidon, maybe, but I don't think that guy was Poseidon.
I definitely wasn't allowed to watch the show, but I can remember always seeing the commercials on TV or seeing it on Disney Channel.
Didn't you watch Harry Potter though?
No, wasn't allowed to watch it either.
Oh my god. R.I.P. But I didn't really watch it either then, because I fell asleep.
Yeah, if you fell asleep, probably wasn't missing much.
But anyways, now that we're all older and into conspiracies, Atlantis has been brought up a butt ton. So we figured it's time to dedicate a whole episode on just anything we could find about it, theories on where it's at, where the myth came from, etc., etc.
So speaking of which, the myth actually originated around 2,400 years ago from the philosopher Plato. He described Atlantis as being a mighty state that possessed 10,000 chariots, advanced technologies, vast numbers of elephants and bulls, and a series of complex canals.
Yeah. He said a lot more than that.
He did.
he wrote a whole dialogue on it, which I'm not very familiar with back then's writings, but I guess it was a book on two guys talking about Atlantis, and he got his information from his ancestor, I believe 4 generations before him, named Solon, who traveled to the city of Sais, Egypt. It was in Egypt though, in 568 BC, and the priests in Egypt had passed down their legend of Atlantis to, well, not their legend, but the legend.
The legend.
To Solon, who then told all the generations, and then Plato, and so on. But yeah, according to some drawings that were in Egypt, they depicted Atlantis as once a colony, that Egypt was a colony of Atlantis, and that's how the ancient Egyptians received the information. Today, the temple of Sais has sunk into the soil because it was built in a swamp area in the delta of the Nile. And through Solon and Plato, the information on Atlantis was passed along, and Solon's detailed notes on Atlantis were published by Plato 6 generations later. And then, what was interesting though was there was the main island of Atlantis that was in the Atlantic Ocean that was a part of the continent Atlantis. Because, I don't know, so many of the theories kind of depicted it as basically Atlantis was just the whole freaking world. Because it was so long ago.
Yeah, because Doesn't Plato describe it as being the size of Asia and Libya put together?
Probably.
I have that in my notes somewhere. I'm sure we'll come across it eventually. But like, that is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting because, like they said, the Atlantic Ocean, to them, was just one big ocean that you could just get to anywhere in the world, which, I mean, it is just one big ocean. We just named it for convenience, I guess. But that was just interesting. But the main island of Atlantis was apparently 700 kilometers across, having mountains along the coast and a great central plain. The capital city was also called Atlantis, and it was 23.5 kilometers across and was alternating land and water circle rings. And it was like 2 rings of land and then 3 of water. And seeing the pictures of it, it looks dope as hell.
It does look super cool.
You just imagine it like coming out the ground or something and spinning around, which there are some theories on that. So the center was sparsely populated and was the holy and sacred center, housing the king, the royal family, their palaces, their servants, and the temple of Poseidon, who was the main god of the Atlanteans. The first land ring was known as the religious sector of the city and was home to a priesthood that performed rituals and sacrifices at shrines. And then the second water ring showed off their navy and was the military harbor that docked at least 1,200 warships. And then the second land ring housed the military and had living quarters for up to 240,000 people. And then the third water ring was a harbor for merchant ships. And then the outer land band was known as like the downtown area and was very densely populated with all the average Atlanteans, I guess.
Average Atlanteans. Alright, so Atlantis was mentioned, obviously, by Plato, but nobody really gets into looking for or trying to discover Atlantis until a actual congressman from Minnesota comes out and writes a book called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. In this book, he claimed that Atlantis was a real place, and he lays out 10 theories. He wrote this in, in 1882. And he lays out like 10 theories of where he possibly thinks Atlantis could be. And I guess because he had credentials as being a representative, like, people kind of took this work seriously, and that's kind of where this whole let's discover where Atlantis actually is came from.
Interesting. I have a theory that the reason there's so many places, there's so many theories on where it is, because it could have been like the whole world was Atlantis.
I'm gonna need like more explanation on that. How does that make sense? What?
I'll expand further along, because it's like scattered all throughout my notes. It's like a big puzzle that comes together.
Alright, we'll wait for it to wrap around at the end.
But also something interesting is that NASA can see a ring in the Sahara Desert that they call the Eye of Africa. It's called Rikat. It's 50 kilometers across, with the middle being 23.5 kilometers, near damn perfect, what Plato said it was. And it was near perfect symmetry. It's not from an impact from an asteroid, according to scientists. And it was located in Mauritania, near the western coast of Africa. And the people there today are Islamic, speaking mostly French and Arabic. Much of the land was probably underwater, with evidence of shipwrecks miles inland and whale skeletons being exposed in sand. Atar is a city that lies at the feet of the Adrar Highlands, and the geography matches how Plato described the whole island of Atlantis was said to be towering and steep towards the side of the sea. And there are indications that the sea did wash up on these mountains, evidence of the lower lying rings being underwater in the past. So, we all know the world through its life has gone through ice ages. And around the time of Atlantis was around the time the last ice age was melting, I believe. So, like, where this west coast is in Africa, the water used to be, like, what was it, 700, I don't know. It was miles further inland. No. Wait, yeah. The Ice Age formed, I guess, sucking up the water. Wow, that was really confusing for my brain just now. But y'all get what I'm saying. So basically, back when the ocean levels were different, where that Eye of Africa is would have been perfect in Plato's description.
Okay,
Follow?
I'm with you.
So Plato describes violent flooding and earthquakes and tsunamis that destroyed the island in a single day and night. Many people believe Atlantis sunk, but closer attention to Plato's statement that says, Atlantis, when sunk by the earthquake, became an impassable barrier of mud to voyagers sailing from hence to any part of the ocean. Plato mentions 2 freshwater wells in the center, and the people today dug a well in the center of this Eye of Africa, and it was fresh water when all the surrounding areas are salt water. Explain that.
That is weird.
Also, it is sheltered by northern mountains and open toward the south, like Plato said. He also said there were elephants, and there are remains of elephants found there today. And the buildings were made of stone, so they crumble after destruction, and there's an area full of loose stone rocks, specifically red, white, and black stone. And artifacts have been found there, such as spheres, like these stone spheres that they think that were used in warfare to, like, not throw, but I guess put in a cannon or something. I don't know.
I just got this funniest image of somebody like running up and just like throwing a rock at somebody's head during war.
It was epic, like snowball fight
Yes.
or something. And they also found arrowheads and like stone needles and a bunch of old typey artifact stuff. And then when looking at who the people worship, the Atlanteans worshipped Poseidon, who was half man, half fish, while most of the current population of Mauritania, their current population converted to Islam. There are some tribal people called the Dogon that believe in spirits called Nomo, described as an amphibious or fish-like creature, and Nomos are depicted as human torsos and fish tails. So that's another interesting little correlation.
You ever seen Clash of the Titans or Wrath of the Titans?
No.
Dang, Poseidon's so cool in that movie.
That's about Poseidon?
Well, it's about like all the gods, but Poseidon's one of them.
Oh. The only thing I think I've seen anywhere near this is like Aquaman. Would
Yeah, I'm sure he
Aquaman
was
be
based off of Poseidon, probably.
Yeah. Jason Momoa could be my Poseidon.
Hey, you?
So, Plato said the god Poseidon fell in love with a mortal woman and begat, which I guess means made love with.
Begat? I'm gonna start only referring to it that way.
And they brought up 5 pairs of male twin children.
5 pairs of male twin children?
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
No, never want to. So with a total of 10 children, that is why Atlantis was set up as 10 kingdoms. And their names are still present in some of the landscapes and stuff today. The firstborn of the first set of twins was named Atlas, which in theory, I guess, is what Atlas Mountains, and Atlantis were named after. And then the kingdom bordering southern Spain was named after his twin, Guederos. And then Gades was the old name for southern Spain. And today there is a city, Cadiz. Probably not pronouncing those right.
Yo, for my Pokemon people out there, that city Guederos is spelled almost just like Gyarados, which is like the fish Pokemon.
Ooh.
Isn't that weird?
More correlations. So, the Dogon's Nomo underwent a transformation and multiplied into 4 pairs of twins. Both cultures obsess over twins a bit, and the Dogon people also knew of the Sirius star system, even though they didn't have telescopes. Like they had, I don't know, I guess it was in their writings and their legends. I don't know. And some say the circular shape of Atlantis resembles a good luck charm to ward off evil, and some believe Atlantis was the eye of the world warding off evil, and it was destroyed by either the Great Flood or the Epic of Gilgamesh. Dun, dun, dun. I still don't really know what the Epic of Gilgamesh is.
I was about to say that, but I was like, let me not sound really dumb right now. I don't really know what it is either.
Whole episode on it, like?
Whole episode on the Epic of Gilgamesh. Wasn't it something that you went over like in high school, or you were supposed to read?
I don't know. It sounds like a Bible thing to me. I
it
really
is,
have
I'm
no
gonna sound
idea. Y'all tell us. School us.
Yeah, let us know about Gilgamesh. Alright, so have you heard of the company Merlin Burroughs?
I don't believe I have.
Okay, so I was reading an article by Live Science, and it was talking about one of the attempts to find Atlantis, and they thought it was in Spain. But the company that was like leading the investigation is a company called Merlin Burroughs, and I actually like looked them up because I wanted to know like who they were, and this is like super cool. I didn't know they had companies like this that existed, but this is from their homepage. It says, we find anything that has been lost, forgotten, or hidden with pinpoint accuracy. We provide a full project management service to bespoke level depending on the client requirements and the scope and parameters of the work required. They do land deep scan surveys, sea deep scan surveys, consultancy and research, and project management. They're based in North Yorkshire, England, and they use historical records and satellite data to find archaeological sites. So like, they're like a company that just like finds shit.
That's awesome.
It was. I was like, first of all, I need to work for them. And you can like hire them, but they're the ones that ended up leading this find. So apparently they were going through some of Plato's passages, and they wouldn't release exactly where they found it, but they believed that it pointed to this certain place in Spain. And they used the satellites that were already in the sky, such as Landsat 5 and Landsat 8, to find the location, and it was in Spain's Donana National Park.
Ooh, I did see something about that, or I heard something about that in a podcast, but I didn't get to look into it.
So in those two passages of text, there was a passage that said, in front of the mouth, which you Greeks call, as you say, the Pillars of Hercules, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together. And these descriptions led Merlin Burroughs, which is the company, to the Spanish coast near the Strait of Gibraltar. Mm-hmm. There the team found several archaeological clues. They found large circles that were possibly the bases of ancient towers, the ruins of what the team claimed may be the Temple of Poseidon, and a greenish-blue patina coating some of the ruins. All of these were all details that Plato included in his dialogues. The team furthermore found the remains of a long seawall, as well as signs of a tsunami, which could be evidence of the cataclysmic event that drowned the society. They actually ended up making a whole 2-hour documentary called Atlantica about the finding, if y'all end up wanting to check it out. But that was an article that had come out in 2018, and then as I was reading another article, I ended up finding out that they proved that those two large circular like pillars in the ground that they thought were the bases of a temple to Poseidon were actually, in 2004 and 2005, they did like some research with plankton in those, and that's what it ended up turning out to be.
Oh my god.
Like, how embarrassing is that, though?
They found a lot of shit they thought was Atlantis, and it was just some dumb shit.
Exactly. And now, even though there's not a lot of ways to, like, confirm the seawalls or that other weird colored stuff, we definitely know that the circles weren't from Atlantis, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's how a lot of these stories kind of end. They think they find it, and then,
I wish they could tell you that from the beginning.
I know. They just want you to fucking watch their shit. Okay, so I watched this documentary called Atlantis Right Before Our Eyes with Frank Joseph, and it starts off by saying that just because it's called Atlantis doesn't mean that it has to be in the Atlantic Ocean. Keep in mind what the Atlantic Ocean would have been 11,600 years ago. The Atlantic Ocean, or oceans of the Atlanteans, used to be a worldwide ocean that circumnavigated the globe and was way more shallow. Columbus was looking for Atlantis in the East Indies for the kings and queens of Europe when he accidentally found America instead. So I thought that was interesting that he was actually looking for Atlantis.
I did too. I had that in my notes. Also, I guess maybe like never crossed my mind before, but can you think of how crazy it is to like that he found like a whole new world and went back to England to tell them like.
And then was just a horrible human.
Yeah, he was absolutely. We don't like Christopher Columbus on Southern work.
No, we do not. But he was an explorer, that's for sure. So Atlantis is a highly coded word according to Frank. The word itself is Greek. It has Atlas in it, who was the guy that held up the skies before they all fell down in some Greek mythology. The word means antipodal, which means on the opposite side of the world, specifically in a marshland. These words are so weird. Like, one word that means the opposite side of the world in a marshland.
I'm gonna find some way to use the word antipodal this week.
Good luck. But Frank describes it as it's located in the furthest west, if you're looking from Europe as example, but also to the furthest east. So I guess he's saying like it's just all encompassing, maybe? And that location, oh wait, no, because he says that location ends up being in this sunken mountain marshland near the area of Southeast Asia and Indonesia. Plato heard of Atlantis from the Egyptian priests, who, according to him, heard it from the Hindus, who learned it from the Atlanteans themselves. And Frank's theory seems to be that Atlantis was in Lemuria, and the Krakatoa volcano went off as a result of a nuclear high-tech war going on between the Atlanteans and the Semites, and one of them dropped a bomb in the volcano, not knowing, apparently, what it would do, and that apparently happened about 75,000 years ago. That nearly destroyed humanity, and this would have been 1,000,000 times the force of the Hiroshima nuclear thing. And nuclear signatures are still there today. So, and he said Atlantis wasn't just an island, it was the whole continent, which could explain its multiple theories of where it is. That was just like another like far off like theory, because you never hear about it being near Indonesia, really.
Let's see, where was it at? I don't know. I had a list of all the different countries that we've thought that it's in before, and it's a lot of them.
Oh, this one, such claims have been made in Antarctica, Bolivia, Turkey, Germany, Malta, the Caribbean, and many more.
We thought we found Atlantis a lot of times. Alright, and we want to throw it out there that the Discovery Channel does not believe in Atlantis, and they're very outspoken about that. Did you read any of their stuff?
No. I only, like, my next thing is from National Geographic. That was like the most mainstream, I guess. I went.
Yeah, and National Geographic seemed kind of cool with Atlantis, but Discovery Channel was not, y'all. So according to their article, they believe that the philosopher Plato invented the island nation in order to illustrate a point about the dangers of aggressive imperialism. So much more boring than there being an actual cool island. But in Plato's telling, Atlantis was no utopia. Through Plato's texts, Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined, which in Plato's time would have referred to modern-day North Africa and over half of Turkey. It was situated in the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere outward from the Strait of Gibraltar. It's a landmass large enough that if it really existed somewhere under the Atlantic Ocean, it would certainly appear on some sonar maps on the ocean floor. And I was kind of thinking that too. They kind of have a point there. Like, if an entire country sunk, like, how could we not see it? The article continues to state that the former U.S. congressman that we mentioned earlier laid out 13 hypotheses in his book. Did I say 10 earlier? It was 13. I was wrong. These were centered on the idea that Atlantis had truly existed and indeed represented a place where early mankind dwelled for ages in peace and happiness. According to the guy that laid out those ideas, Atlantis was the original source of many ancient civilizations around the world. And if one followed Plato's clues in his writing, then he believed that Atlantis could be found. And his main ideology, like why he believed it could be found, was apparently another amateur archaeologist had used Homer's The Iliad. Did you have to read that in school?
No.
Okay, I didn't either. But another archaeologist used Homer's The Iliad to unearth the legendary city of Troy, apparently. So he was like, hey, if that led somebody to find Troy, then why can't Atlantis be a thing?
Sure. But
different.
yeah.
But yeah, so Discovery Channel, they're not into Atlantis.
So, I watched a documentary in my car today while I was waiting for a class. And it was from National Geographic, and it was called The Legend of Atlantis Drain the Oceans. Basically, they got together a bunch of theories of where certain people think Atlantis was, and they ran this program where they computer generated what it would be like if they drained the ocean and what it would look like, type of thing. So it started off with Professor Patrick Nunn, who was a geologist. He said, as water retreated on remote Japanese island Yanaguni, which is in the East China Sea, a large mysterious formation began to appear. And then Koichiro Arataki, who is a local diver, made a discovery on a dive and found a step-like formation the size of 5 football fields and the height of an 8-story building. It had smooth walls, stone stairs, and something he thought humans had clearly made. And then using the sonar scans to investigate, they drained the ocean. So then Professor Masaki Kimura, who is a marine geologist in Japan, he dove himself to explore it and found something that looked like a front gate to a castle that kind of formed into a tunnel, and around the end of the tunnel there was a road that looped around into a flight of steps that was watched over by 2 stone structures that looked like mounds at the top that resembled turtles. According to Japanese folklore, the dragon god Ryujin lives in an underwater palace watched over by turtles, indicating it was very important. There was also a triangular pool near the water. So basically it was this big long plain, but it was stepped off. Yeah. And at the very top, there was a perfect triangle, just pool. And it was as if people were coming out of the chilly water and walking up the stairs to soak in the warmer water that was basking in the sun. I don't know. It was weird.
So wait, we actually discovered that?
Yeah, this is an actual formation that's under the water in Japan.
That's really dope.
And let's see, Kimura says all of this points to this being used as a castle, but he needs evidence, so he looked for artifacts, and he did find a few, but really the only one that was of any value in my eyes that looked like an actual artifact was a stone about this big, and it had 2 perfect holes in it with some faint lettering, and he said that maybe it was a little plate they hung up to ward off something. But according to him, it looked like it was built before the pyramids of Egypt, and they found that it was one solid mass of rock carved out by man out of sandstone. Because that's what the surrounding stones on the land on the island is. Yeah. And their theory is that the water carved out the steps, because sandstone is apparently really moldable. If the ground is sinking and the water is pushing up on shore, it carves out stairs. But these were pretty perfect.
And what about the triangle and stuff?
I don't know. And then, so Dr. James Delgado, a maritime archaeologist, believes the structure is made from geology and doesn't buy into the whole lost civilization theory. Let's see. Oh, that goes into the next location. But yeah, their whole theory at the end of that part was basically that it was just natural, and no one could explain who would have done it. I guess they just didn't find any further evidence. I feel a lot of these research plans kind of go open-ended because like it probably costs so much money to fund that research, and like who's gonna actually fund research for Atlantis? I'm
That's
sure
what our
few and
taxpayer
far.
money needs to go to. Funding
Yeah.
Atlantis.
Frick CRISPR and cancer cures and all of that. Let's find Atlantis. But anyways, the next location is called Alcanis Bay off the island of Zakynthos, Greece. We all know how bad I am with words. Okay, so a diver took photos in the water and found large rocks that looked man-made that spread out for hundreds of yards and believed he found a lost city. So Professor Michael Stamataki, who was a geologist, went to investigate, and he recalled seeing the same shapes of rock on a land at the site of an ancient settlement built 2,000 years ago. If waters were drained in the Mediterranean Sea, they did the whole draining of the ocean in the Mediterranean Sea, but no artifacts were uncovered. The rocks found under question were found to be too weak for structures because they thought that these were like, it kind of looked like the crumblings of like columns or like pillars or something, but they found that that structure, like it was just too weak, whatever that was made out of, because literally the scientists went on the beach and took some of this rock and was like, look at this.
Probably because it's been like 200 billion years.
I don't know, like if it's some strong stone that like Greek times, like those kind of things, I don't know.
So like, how soft can stone be? I feel like most stone's strong enough to hold up other stone of its kind.
And it doesn't just deteriorate
Yeah, true.
and turn into dust. No. But, let's see. And the circular shapes could be from ocean vents that they predate humans by 5 million years. Because like the other stuff that they found were these perfect circular things at the floor. But throughout history, there's been like ocean vents that like will form those circular rings. Just dumb little mistaken identities.
Just like the little circular ecological ponds for plankton.
Mm-hmm. So then, the next location was Elefonisos village on a small island off the Greek coast.
You did such a good job saying that word. Elefonisos.
Is that a real, like, does it sound like something you've heard before? Because, like, I could
No,
have
but
said
like
that
you did,
so wrong.
but you like just said it with confidence.
I tried. Because I don't know if I spelled these right because I was just watching the show and, like, trying to sound it out the best way I could read it to sound it out right, if that makes sense. Anyways, in 1967, something caught the eye of a snorkeler, and it was regular shapes that looked man-made. He found pots, tools, etc., indicating a lost town. He even found a grave down there, like 2 long slabs of like cement or something, and then like the 2 short ones, and it was a grave apparently. So if they drained the ocean, they found that the lines of stuff that he found were foundations of buildings laid out along clear roads, and then there was a heart of the town with a large open area, possibly a marketplace, and it covered 20 acres and could have housed 4,000 people. There was pottery from about 5,500 years to 1,000 years old, and they dated this town, like they pretty much confirmed this was a lost town, and it was around the end of the Stone Age and lasted into the Bronze Age. And they obviously took part in trading and manufacturing, but no records were found on who they were. And they found evidence of the land sinking there, but researchers don't believe this is Atlantis, even though that one guy that found that stuff really wanted it to be.
Yeah, if I find something that even slightly I think is Atlantis, I'm going to the grave and believe that's Atlantis.
Okay. So then there was another a guy named Mark who analyzed Plato's text on Atlantis and took the part where it said it was situated in front of the Pillars of Hercules, the name given by Plato to the maritime boundary of ancient Greek world, and near the Strait of Gibraltar. I knew that came up in my notes somewhere. And today, the area sits under the second busiest shipping route in the world, making it hard to investigate. So they used a remote operated vehicle to do a little underwater mapping of the seafloor. And Plato said that all of Atlantis was destroyed in one day and night, right? Caused by strong earthquakes and floods. The island revealed by experiment. I guess they did find evidence of an island revealed by this experiment that sat on a huge subduction zone, which is a boundary between two tectonic plates where most of the most severe earthquakes occur. But no one can find evidence of humans in this area of the ocean. And the ice age melted and sea levels rose 400 feet over a 1,000-year period, slowly washing away many lost civilizations. And then the documentary kind of like ended with, did Plato come up with Atlantis story from the Ice Age? Every ancient civilization has a great flood story, and they even use New Orleans as an example of sinking cities and how we're gonna be the next Atlantis.
Okay, so I was watching a documentary earlier while I was waiting on you to come over about Atlantis, and I kind of fell asleep, and I woke up about 20 minutes later, and it was talking about New Orleans, and I was like, I am so confused as to how we went from Atlantis to New Orleans.
Probably this one.
Bro, Atlantis is New Orleans.
Except, what great finds are they gonna find in New Orleans? Some handguns, some fucking used. No, I'm not even gonna go. But like, I would not want to be an archaeologist discovering underwater New Orleans.
Underwater New Orleans.
That's so weird because they said that New Orleans could very be uninhabitable within the turn of the century.
I don't understand why New Orleans even exists. I mean, I guess they probably didn't realize that when they were building it, and I'm sure it's around like ports and stuff, so that's why they did it. But like,
they even tried to reform the river to make it better, but they fucked it up.
It's like so far under sea level. Like, I mean, we're from Louisiana, so Katrina, the hurricane, destroyed the entire city with the levees.
Yeah, I think they are like 6 feet under sea level.
Yeah. So like to have a whole huge city.
It's literally a bowl. It's a bowl. The only rim is like their weak ass levee system at this point.
Hey, it survived Ida though. We take those.
But how many more will she take before she succumbs to where Atlantis?
Alright, we need to move New Orleans somewhere else.
No.
Like Pangea. We need to physically detach the land. I'm gonna stop talking. We can continue with Atlantis.
Like, we can take the culture of New Orleans, and that's it. Leave all the crime, leave all the corruption, leave all the
yeah,
the
actually,
bourbon.
If New Orleans sinks, it probably wouldn't be the. Let me stop talking.
Yeah. Did you have anything else, or should I go on to my YouTube video that I watched?
I am done. That is it.
Because this one is where the aliens come in.
Oh yes, we've been waiting for this.
I knew I had to. Okay, so this was a YouTube video from the channel The Unexplained, and it was called The Supernatural Civilization of Atlantis. So Dr. Sarah Burdoff works for the Center of Medieval and Renaissance Studies at UCLA. And she says that we hear from Plato that the gods drew lots and divided the world up for areas that they would be responsible for. Poseidon received an island and found a human woman, fell in love, the whole 5 sets of twins, firstborn son was Atlas, that whole thing. So then Dr. Rick Rader, who is an author, said the inhabitants of Atlantis believed to be, they believed that they were gods, but not at Poseidon's level. And they endowed supernatural powers. They had the best technology, the most resources. Their civilization was crafted from a god for their greatest benefit. So they were obviously great. So then William Henry, who was an investigative mythologist, awesome career choice.
Right.
He said that Plato said Atlanteans were, I just said Atlanteans.
I was about to say, have I been saying it wrong this whole time? Is that what it is? Atlanteans?
Atlanteans were the children of the gods, and they were hybrids of half human, half god, but maybe not gods, but they were maybe extraterrestrials, giving
Dun, dun, dun.
them these godlike abilities that mated with human females. What if Atlantis, hear me out, was a spaceship?
You lost me.
Like imagine that circular thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
That I said looked like you could just like.
And it could like rise and fall.
Mm-hmm. So, what if Atlantis was a spaceship that landed in different areas of the world at different times?
As much as I want to like hate that theory, that actually kind of makes kind of sense.
Leaving traces in all these places where people theorize Atlantis could have been, but no one could put their finger on it because they would always just up and leave. Okay, so now that I got you hooked, Greek myths do talk about stars falling from the sky and creating islands in the ocean. And cultures all around the world talk about humans deciding to ascend or leave the planet because of a great flood or cataclysm, and the Atlanteans knew what was coming, so they left for the stars and disappeared out of history.
Alright, if there's any theory I believe about Atlantis, it's that one.
Right? Because they thought, like, they also mentioned in that video, I think, something about what if the people of Atlantis were coming back home? They had gone off. They came back home to, like, repopulate the world after whatever cataclysm activities were going on, and then were like, this batch is a little fucked up.
Not this batch of humans being bad.
I know, but that definitely is my favorite theory. So, I only have one more thing, because we never tied in our giant episode to Atlantis yet. So remember when we were talking about Sardinia?
Yes.
And there was that guy that found the giant bones and says that was Atlantis, or the giants were sent to Atlantis, blah, 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 whatever. So I wanted to try to look more into that, and I found this website called TotalSardinia.com, and it listed out all these similarities between Atlantis and Sardinia. They're kind of weak, to be honest. Because, like, nowhere else in my other research for Atlantis was Sardinia mentioned. And I found that weird, but, like, this one guy was gung-ho about.
Let's hear him anyway.
Okay. So, one, Atlantis was inhabited by elephants, and fossil remains of dwarf elephants have been found across the Mediterranean, including Sardinia. Dwarf elephants. When you think if they were associated with giants, they would be giant elephants? No,
Yeah,
I'm
they
just
were like
kidding.
their pets.
I'm
They were
just
like the
kidding.
poodles of dogs for giants.
And then number 2, Atlantis produced trees and had an abundance of wood. And Sardinia was once a huge forest, but was systematically cleared to make raw materials and railways into Italy's mainland.
No way this guy's saying Atlantis had trees and we have trees.
Exactly what I thought. Number 3, Atlantis has hot and cold fountains. And then Sardinia has an abundance of hot springs, and many ancient sacred wells can be found.
A little some.
Number 4, Atlantis' religious practices included sacrificing bulls, and bull horns are a symbol that can be found across Sardinia, carved into tombs and caves.
Okay, see, there's like something
There's
kind of
something-
evidential.
With some weight. Number 5, both have beautiful fertile soil.
Nope, that's what's number 6.
6, Atlantis had mountains in the north and along the coast with flat plains in the south, which is a similar description to the landscape of Sardinia.
Okay, we take that one as well. Honestly, he just needs somebody to proofread that and be like, hey man, numbers 2, 4, 1, and 5.
Yeah,
pretty bad.
there was also like a whole rest of the website, but it was like repeating everything about Plato, and it was towards the time I actually had a good class, so I was just like, this is repetitive.
I feel that.
But yeah, after all of that, what are we thinking?
Alright, so I don't think Atlantis existed. I'm kind of with the Discovery Channel here, saying that it was like a metaphor for something else that Plato was talking about, because he was a philosopher after all. He did use analogies and stuff like that a lot. However, I think if it did exist, it's absolutely got to be like the aliens.
Yes. I'm pretty much on the same page, because part of me wants to believe that Plato was some... I can't put my finger on it, but he was a mastermind, I feel like. He was so smart. Was he the smart one? Or was that... No, I'm thinking of Aristotle.
Yeah.
So many Greek in that first. But anyways, but like, what if Plato was just playing us?
But that'd be pretty messed up.
Like, what if he just was like, I want my whole legend to be, I created this world and taught the world a lesson, and they're gonna believe it until the world
It's
ends.
the ultimate troll.
Yeah, like, what if? And then, if Atlantis was real, it totally 1000% has to be aliens. Because they just, if the myths are true, and Poseidon was a half human, half fish. But,
Poseidon's Zeus's brother. Right?
dude, the whole thing with Greek gods, like, were they human? Were they not? Were they made up? Were they... It's so confusing to me, for my brain. I don't know.
Maybe we'll do an episode of our Greek gods one day. And
Oh
really sort it
god,
all
there's
out.
so many. Literally, I'm in a class right now called the History of Biology, and we have to go over biology in ancient Greece. There's so much.
That's kind of cool, actually, though.
It is. It's a really interesting class. Like, they talk about how they would, like, dissect live people and stuff. It's pretty dope.
That's great. Why don't we still do that? What's up?
Why don't we still do that?
Yeah.
They used to do it for, to criminals. Like,
What?
Like, oh, you murdered somebody? We're gonna live dissect you.
Bring that back. Like, it only makes sense. Like, why are we have to, like, learn for science. We might as well use people that are already gonna die.
Undead Israel Keys and live dissect him.
100%. Alright guys, that's about all we have time for today. Make sure y'all come back and visit us in 2 weeks for our newest episode.
Until then, stay connected with us by following our socials on Instagram and Twitter at Southern Woke. And don't forget to leave a rating or review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. It can really help boost our podcast and put it somewhere on a chart maybe one day.
Yeah, if y'all want a non-monetary way to support the podcast, leaving us reviews on Spotify or Apple is the best way that y'all can help us out.
And if you leave a really cute one, we'll read it and give you a shout out. Alright, y'all. Bye.